G'day. Welcome back. Another ep of the podcast with the three mates. Of course, yours truly, Brad, to my left, your right, Joey Plum, and on the opposite side, Ty Grieve, aka Phoons. How are we, boys?
Good, but also, like every pod, I feel like we need to offer an apology for our lack of consistency.
Yeah.
We go, we'd like to get in once a month, 2 months pass, 3 months pass. But no, good. I think we're tackling this one a little bit different to usual in that we are doing it slightly less structured. We spoke, we have a topic in mind that we'll bring up, but we thought we'd just riff on this one and kind of just, have a bit more of a free-flowing approach. Lots has been happening since we last spoke. So instead of having a homework-based topic where we came with a really structured episode, we thought, let's just chat. We've got our coffee, and let's just chat as if we do every time we catch up for coffee. So, yeah. But I'm doing good. How you doing, Phoons?
Good. It's been a busy couple months. Got appendicitis, went overseas, so been busy.
Asparagus surgery on the way.
Yeah, my dyslexia made its way to the surface this morning. I told the boys that I had to go see... I was meant to say an appendix doctor in 3 weeks, but I accidentally said asparagus.
Which is obviously brilliant qualification to be a part of a podcast with your mates. But obviously super excited to be here as always, lads. And the topic we wanted to tackle today, you would have heard us speak a couple months back around the idea of limiting beliefs. And I guess all the topics that we cover here on the pod are essentially around, understanding, discovering more of ourselves as three young men who are, every day stepping a little bit further into adulthood and manhood and trying to understand ourselves, understand the world around us, which can be incredibly challenging in current times. And, one of the things that we think is an important element of growing up and understanding yourself is, having beliefs, but understanding that with further education and understanding, sometimes those beliefs change. And I know there's certainly examples of that in my life. And sometimes it's a healthy change in belief. Sometimes it's a challenging change in belief. But we wanted to riff on a few of those changes in belief in our own lives. I know that for all three of us, it's going to be different and going to be represented in different ways. So we're calling this episode something along those lines, whether it be things we formerly believed to be true that we no longer do, or as Phoons suggested, the Santa Claus theory, the Santa Claus bias. We'll call it something.
Things that you used to believe that you no longer do.
Yeah. And it's also this type of conversation, and we've spoken it, I know when Phoons was in Europe, Brad, you and I spoke about this, the idea that, especially with the political landscape and, pop culture at the moment feels so political with the US elections coming up and whatnot, that you're not allowed to change your tone. You're not allowed to change your belief. If you have a public theory on something or a public opinion, don't you dare change it. And we're in this place where it's very discouraged to once believe something and then no longer believe that to be true. And that's really not conducive to a society or an environment that is growing, to go, oh no, I said this thing once and now I have to stick by it. And we get into this place where people, kind of die on the cross for a thing because they have to be so staunch in their belief. Because if they switch their tone, they're considered, there's a lack of intelligence, or they can't be trusted, or whatever it might be. But I just thought, when was the last time when was the last time I switched up on a thing that I once thought to be true? And then I thought, let me ask Brad and let me bring it to the pod and ask Phoons, what's some stuff that we once thought was true that we could have bet our house on it, that we were staunch in our beliefs to go, no, this is the way it is. And then life teaches us otherwise and we go, yeah, I was completely wrong about that thing. And that's okay. It's okay to be wrong about it. It should be encouraged to question those things, which will in turn probably mean that you're going to find out you're wrong about more things you once believed than you thought to be true. So yeah, I think it's a cool exercise to go, what's changed? Now that I'm 30, what did I believe at 20 that just like literally is not a part of my belief system anymore?
I definitely think social media plays into that as well, because you put your beliefs out there. There's like a digital footprint of what you did believe, and then you can physically see a change in beliefs, which might be probably people restrict that approach more so than back in the day. No one knew what you believed. It was kind of, there was no digital footprint of it.
Yeah, beliefs aren't as closeted as they used to be, and you spoke about it just there before, Joey, saying that that's not conducive. The lack of change in belief or questioning of it isn't conducive to a growing society, and makes me think of that James Clear quote that the tighter you cling to your current identity, the harder it is to grow beyond it. And I think that beliefs certainly are a part of the identity that we see for ourselves, and so I'm trying to change that all the time. I notice it as a speaker. You get on stage and you've got I wouldn't say a routine, but you do kind of have a routine that is around a certain number of topics that you feel like you have personal experience in, that you want to speak on, that that crowd or that speaking agency has booked you to speak on behalf of these things because they believe that you've got value to add or to share. And there's almost this this feeling that is that me forever? Because someone paid me to speak about that once, or can I question that? Or can my life experiences influence the way that I now think differently about it? And I think that it's certain that what we believe today may help us in this phase of our life, but may not help us tomorrow. And whether those beliefs are things that have changed because there's concrete life evidence for them to change, or because it's a change in feeling. It's actually a thing that for someone may be true, but for another isn't. I think is really important to recognise too. So
yeah, there's so much nuance around beliefs, and for that point exactly, like you just said, Brad, it might be true for you, but that doesn't mean it's true for me. And that's okay, because to have a black and white approach to beliefs or whatever it might be, it's just simply not gonna, it just can't work. Everyone at different stages in their life, in different cultures, in different contexts, are gonna have different things that they believe that work for them at that point in their life. That doesn't mean that that they're all wrong or they're all right, but accepting that we're going to have differences in beliefs. And I'm not sure who I can credit the quote to, but I heard it once, which I thought was great. And it's hold strong opinions loosely. So when we talk about, these changes in beliefs, it's not having a loose foundation where you're like, I don't really even know too much or care about much, and my beliefs are always changing and I don't really have much. No, it's not that. It's do your due diligence, have a foundation of beliefs that work for you, hold them strongly, but be loose in that I'm open to them changing, and I'm open to learning a different way of thinking, having a different perspective. And so then you're in this sweet spot of having an opinion, having a foundation, having some direction based off of your belief systems. And we've spoke about how belief systems dictate behavior, dictate results that reinforce belief systems. So you have to have opinions, you have to have beliefs. And having strong beliefs is great, but hold them loosely, because I know through my experiences and stuff we'll talk about today is that life is going to tell you and show you through experiences that, hey, you need to challenge that belief, and that belief might no longer be true for you. And that's cool. Be open to that. So, yeah.
Well, they say you can't teach an old bull new beliefs, but you're saying you can.
Yeah, I guess so. It's not an old dog new tricks. It's an old bull new beliefs.
I like it.
I dig it.
I like that you've coined that yourself.
They say it. Whoever they is.
Yeah, whoever they, smart people, wise people for sure. Well, I guess we can dive into it, lads, and maybe I'll kick it off, go first cab off the rank, because there's a very relevant changing in belief for me lately. And this has been something that over the product of the last 20, 21 months has been a changing belief for me. But we spoke about it in our limiting beliefs episode, that for a good portion of my life, probably from my sort of mid-teens through to my mid-20s, there was a fear and a belief for me that as someone with cystic fibrosis who was really healthy and really well, in spite of the challenges that I had with my illness, I felt really confident about my future, but I always struggled to believe that a significant other would come into my life who could see the positivity and the optimism that I seen for my future. And that's because, you know, the minute you jump on Dr. Google, you'll get a bit of a rundown of what life with cystic fibrosis is supposed to look like. And it will say things along the lines of a life expectancy of 36 to 41 years of age, months of the year in hospital, a lack of ability to breathe, to exercise, to walk upstairs, to do all of these things that we take for granted as daily outings or daily activities. And so I always felt, I guess, this lump in my chest that, you know, whilst I see such an incredible future for myself, will someone else be willing to bank on that future with me? Would a woman that come into my life be willing to disregard everything that she read, disregard some of the negativity that she heard? Would her family be able to back her with that same confidence? And would she be able to trust in the fact that we could create a life together, that we could start a family together and have a future where her husband and the father of her children wasn't going to tap out early? And so that was always a bit of a limiting belief for me that, you know, not that anyone had actually, and it was such an irrational limiting belief because nobody had ever stopped me in my tracks through my years of dating and trying to meet people and said, hey, I don't think I can bet on a life together because of this thing that you're facing. And I had this very clear evidence that I was able to overcome it and show resilience in the face of it because I was running the marathons and being the face of CF in the way that I spoke and shared my story and conquered those challenges. But there was always just this little piece of my heart that couldn't believe in that. And then in 2022, at the end of the year, I met Soph, and still remember the feeling of our first date. I can remember the date, the 12th of November, 2022. You know, I was obviously keen to impress from remember it like yesterday, just like keen to impress her as any man would be on a date with a woman. You want them to think that you're attractive, you know, you're punching well above your weight, so you're trying to make sure your eyebrows look good, you've got a bit of tan on the skin, you're tossing up, do I wear the tank top or the t-shirt? You regrettably choose the tank top. And, you know, you're going through the motions of that first date and enjoying it and, you know, having such a positive response to this person you're sitting in front of. But the whole time you're questioning, do they know the big thing about me yet that I'm about to tell them?
Okay.
And then you share the fact that you have cystic fibrosis. And we'd kind of touched on it in the messages in the week leading up to our first date. But as I sat there and kind of explained what that was.
Did that come up naturally in conversation or did you lead with it?
Well, it comes up relatively naturally for someone in my position because, you know, you're sitting down having a coffee, you pull out a bunch of tablets to take so that you can digest the fat
Want
from
to get
your
high.
coffee.
Yeah. It's Sunday morning. It's 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. So you're like, this guy's built different.
And so it kind of does come up like relatively naturally, or at least it's an opportunity to lean into that conversation. And she had done her research and knew relatively enough about it and was, you know, meeting me at a time in my life where I had just run a couple marathons and was in really good health. So there were positive signs of what my life and my future would look like. But she immediately just said, well, everyone's got something and, you know, you look like you're doing amazing and you seem really confident about it, so why shouldn't I be? Wow. And so it was such a positive response. And, you know, over the course of now like 21 months or nearly 21 months together, where we've like dived into life and looked into, or even all these other challenges, like we have to, if we want to have children, it has to be IVF because of my, without going into too much information for people, basically, as a male with CF, you don't have a vas deferens, so the sperm can't be transported the way that it normally would be for everyone else. So there's just a hurdle of new procedures, which makes her life, which without me wouldn't be as difficult, a little bit more difficult. But you get confidence in the person that you're with by their willingness to overcome challenges alongside you for your future together. And, you know, we're at an exciting stage in our life where literally nearly this time last week to the minute, I was on one knee asking her to marry me, and thankfully she said yes. So, you know, yeah.
That was fireworks. That was confetti.
Yeah, just in case you didn't know.
That was air cannon.
But yeah, like a super exciting stage of our life. And in actually sitting and reflecting, like it probably didn't, in the moment, it was so special. It was the best day of my life to tell the person that you love, that you want them to be your partner in marriage, and, you know, you want to spend your life together. And we spoke about it. Nothing about our relationship has changed outside of the fact that we call each other fiancés now, that she has a ring on her finger, that we had that moment together, that we're now starting to actively move in the direction of marriage. So nothing in our commitment, though, has changed, because we always treated each other as that in our relationship. But for me, it was quite a reflective point where I sat down after the couple of days that we'd had away together, and I was like, fuck, like look at where my life is right now compared to where it was a couple of years ago, where I couldn't see this as a future for myself. I'm very much within it now. It's very real because I'm experiencing it and seeing it every day. And I had this moment that was the most special day of our lives where I got to ask that question. She said yes. And then I had all of our family come to surprise her for a really nice lunch at a winery just outside of Wollongong here in the Southern Highlands. And such a beautiful day, such a special day to enjoy it with our family. And to reflect on that now, I'm like, oh, that's a belief that has changed my life for the better in that challenging of it. And it takes, the one thing is, it takes courage to challenge beliefs. And like, that's one thing I'm really proud of myself looking back. It took a lot of courage to step into that relationship because, and this is the challenge for everyone, regardless of whether you have CF or you're just a regular guy or regular gal who wants to feel love and feel that connection, there is always an element of fear that if this doesn't work out, or if this does and then I lose that person, what does this say about me? There's always that fear. What does this say about my future or my future prospects? But, you know, that's the beauty in tackling fear.
Absolutely, man. And that's really special to get to a place where, through the support of another, you are now able to challenge and, I guess, rewrite the belief system. And I think what's also really special about that is the fact that you pulled off a single leg lunge. Maybe the first got down on one knee and back up. How nervous were you that you're like, I'm not going to be able to get back up here? I haven't done a single leg lunge in a long time.
Thankfully, pretty loose pants on.
See, this is the thing that guys need to know. If you're going to propose, what are you going to wear?
You ain't wearing those skinny jeans.
Skinny jeans, no way.
Fuck those skinny jeans off. No jeggings. It's literally loose trousers.
Okay.
So you look both very cool. Shout out to the brother Joshy Hares at Porter James Sport for creating an incredible proposal pant.
And functionality is important. Proposal pant.
Proposal pant. I might get him to change the name of it on the website, but I'll say don't underestimate me. There have been a lot of single leg lunges as a man with hips of my caliber over the last couple of years. So
no, that's awesome, man. I think the two things that came up for me just when you were speaking were, it was interesting that you didn't believe your health was, like, I guess, a burden for you. So you didn't necessarily hold the belief, or maybe this is more so a question, did you hold the belief that your health was going to stop you, going to hold you back, was going to make you tap out early, to use your words? And if you didn't hold that belief, then it's interesting to me that you kind of didn't trust that other people didn't have the same, I guess, opinion on your health. Because if you didn't even think that, it would have felt quite easy to go, oh, no, it doesn't even bother me, so why would it bother someone else? But yeah, where did your health not qualify you for a relationship when it came to other people? Because within yourself, it sounds to me like your health wasn't even a factor.
Well, certainly for anyone who's listened to the podcast or watched in the past, they likely would have come across the first episode that we did as three mates. You'd have both been on the podcast before, but the first we did as a collective was the eulogy episode. And as you would have heard in that episode, I've certainly never believed that my life would be any shorter than anyone else's. And I always thought that I had an extraordinary future ahead of me, regardless of my health. But there have certainly been moments in time where that has been tested. And I mean moments, or, you know, a period of a week or a couple of days where I've had a really bad lung bleed. And actually, I wouldn't even say a couple of days or a week, but like just these singular moments in time where I've been rushed to emergency and my lungs are bleeding and it won't stop, where you question, am I in dire straits here? Like, is this like a life or death situation? And at the time, you can't help but think the worst. And then often post-event, you go, oh, I'm all right, I'm hanging in there, I'll be right. I've always had that positive outlook on it. But this is the thing about fears. They often are irrational. Like, you think about our fear of sharks. It's different when you've got, like, one of my mates was mauled by a bull shark and survived, you know. So you go, well, a little bit closer to home. But most of us have a fear of sharks when we go into the water. Or in the back of our mind, it's this thought of the Jaws movie. Oh, kind of the water's a bit dark, I can't see. Maybe it is a little bit too close to dusk or dawn. We start to have these irrational beliefs. But we very well know that every day when we step foot inside of a car to drive to work or to go down the shops or to go grab a coffee, there is a higher likelihood of us dying in the car than there is us out in the water being attacked by a shark. The challenge is these fears are always irrational, or in most cases are. Rarely are our fears the things that we've got trauma around. You know, and there's certainly examples of that in our life.
I'd probably say they are rational, they're just magnified.
Does that make it irrational then? Where it's like, if something's so exaggerated to the point of almost non-existent, then it's like in moderation, yeah, you should be aware that going in the ocean, there's a risk of being attacked by a shark. But does that mean that you won't even dip your toes in the whitewash because you're afraid you're going to get taken by a bull shark? It's the same fear, but there's a level of irrationality in the behavior where you're like, how's it manifesting? Is a fear stopping you from doing something which is like so unlikely to happen? Yeah, I don't know.
It's a hard one, and I think it's different for everyone. Everyone's relationship with it is different. I recently heard Tom Aspinall, the heavyweight champ of the UFC at the moment, or interim heavyweight champion, I should say. He was speaking on a little clip about how he was asked, what's something that people wouldn't know about you? And he said, I'm the heavyweight champion of the UFC and I'm fucking terrified of fighting people. And the guy was like, so how does that work? And he's like, well, I think it helps me. Because it makes me incredibly aware of the way that I fight when I step into the cage. And it makes me aware of the fact that I'm in a dangerous situation. And so my mind is active. And so I think for someone like that fear that actually on the surface sounds incredibly rational and irrational at the same time because of the caliber of person he is. It's incredibly rational to have a fear of confrontation and being in a violent confrontation with someone because there is a lot at stake. But when you're the heavyweight champion of the world, it sounds a little funny, but it makes a lot of sense. And so I think we all have these different relationships with fears.
The butcher that's afraid of red meat.
Yeah, the vegan butcher.
Yeah.
Fucking fruit ninja.
Yeah.
But, you know, we all have examples of this in our life. And to answer your question properly, Joey, for me, I don't know what it is, but I think we'd spoken about in other episodes, I'd had certain insecurities about my appearance over the course of years where I really struggled with bad acne as a teenager. And I, in my head, built up this fucking brick wall that was so high of all the reasons that I couldn't find a partner who would want to spend the rest of my life with me. That, you know, CF being this thing that started to feel like a barrier to add to that list. It was just another reason to believe and almost hide myself away from ever having to step outside of my comfort zone and try to create a long-term relationship.
Right, okay.
Was something that just added to the pile. And then you start to hear, you know, from the ages of like my birth till the age of 18, I'd really been unfazed by my CF. Like, my medical record was thick and there were plenty of things happening and plenty of tablets and routines to partake in every day to keep myself really healthy. But it really wasn't until 18 that my health started to decline. And over the course of 6 years of declining health, you start to hear things on the external, never from my family, never from my friends, but on the external, where people make comments on, oh, how hard that must be. I remember when I bought my first home, I was waiting at the bank for my home loan consultant to sit down with me, and this fella walks out and he goes, mate, I can't believe it. And I didn't recognise this guy, had no idea who he was. And he goes, oh, mate, I can't believe it, Bradley Driver. And I was like, yeah, what's going on? And he's like, oh, you went to kindergarten with my son. I thought you'd be dead by now.
Whoa, what a wild comment.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh,
What a
mate.
wild comment.
I was like, alive and healthy.
Still kicking, brother.
Yeah. And I was like, at that point in time, my health had been declining. I was probably, at my worst physically.
That might be the single biggest backhanded compliment you could give anyone in life.
Yeah.
For sure. And I don't know whether in his head that made sense or whether it sounded like an inspirational thing to say. Maybe it was poor delivery. Maybe it was the perfect moment of inspiration just with incredibly poor delivery.
I think you left a few boxes unchecked with that delivery.
Yeah. But it's so interesting. He's like, I'll have to tell my young bloke he's still alive. And I'm like, fuck.
He's just teeing off on you.
And
like, dude, I'm just here to buy a house, man. Come on.
To me personally, it didn't dent my confidence. It didn't made me... I remember telling my parents, and I found it hilarious. My parents didn't find it that funny. And it didn't dent any of our confidence because we always believed that my future would be bright and would be healthy. But I think it's these little things that over time added to that pile of outside of your circle. Does anyone really believe what you believe about yourself?
Right, okay.
Or are you a bit delusional?
So
and I'm okay to be a little bit delusional about my health, but does anyone else really believe it? And so you have to, and like the thing that I always would think is, I commend Soph's amazing family who I love dearly about their confidence in me too, because now they've had, nearly 2 years of examples of why they should believe in an incredible
months.
future. Yeah, 21 months, yeah, exactly. And, but, at the time, I can imagine that when they first heard about what cystic fibrosis was, there would have been this like, oh, that's serious. But they had the same confidence that Soph did. So I always thought that, in-laws would see that and go, oh, we have to protect our daughter.
Yeah.
Protect her from potential future disappointment. But...
Right. Well, I guess the reason I asked you that question, because I wanted to see if there was a moment, if there was a series of moments that created that belief that, hey, my CF doesn't qualify me to be in a flourishing long-term relationship. And whilst what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like there was that one girl that said, hey, like, you're an awesome guy, but I'm just not really willing to move forward because of the CF. Or, hey, things are great, but I just don't think I'm ready to be with someone with CF. Those are quite obvious examples of why you would create a belief system like that. But almost indirectly, it sounds like you had this faith in your health, but you were kind of getting these microaggressions from the outside world being like, hey, your health is kind of something that we don't trust. Whether it's the home loan guy making comments like that, or other people saying, wow, like you're doing so well. It's almost like, oh, they don't trust it. So maybe a potential partner also doesn't trust it.
Well, I think there's two sides to the coin of belief. One is faith. And we've spoken about that, like when there is no evidence for a belief to be true or something that you hold, you have to have an element of faith if you want to turn that into a belief with, on that other side of the coin, evidence. And I've heard Hormozy and Chris Will talk about it, and we've shared it before, that belief is a product of evidence, And I think that I'd done myself a huge injustice for a 10, 12-year period of my life where these insecurities and things about myself that didn't feel good enough, I allowed myself to almost cower into those beliefs and not challenge them. I allowed myself to let that wall build up by not stepping outside of my comfort zone, by playing it safe, by being the guy who, when he had a pimple, and I don't mean a fucking blackhead, I mean like when I had a mountain on my face, like cystic acne is a bitch. Like it's hard to be confident when your face is covered in cysts, and I would have those moments, but I would completely cower away and I wouldn't go to the gym. I would not show up socially at school. And probably at the time people didn't realise, because I'd done a really good job of trying to hide that and hide that lack of confidence because I was ashamed of those things. But I gave myself every reason to believe those things about me change my value because I didn't challenge them. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think now as a 28-year-old man who's seen the power, who has seen what challenging yourself can do for yourself, in changing beliefs, in giving you a next level of confidence, in stepping outside of your comfort zone and realizing who you can be. That's why I encourage everyone to really challenge very early what you believe to be something that holds you back.
And it's easy for us to say in hindsight. We're here as,
correct,
you know, like late 20s to early 30-year-old young men. There was this weird naivety that we've spoken about before, really up until the age of like 20. I didn't have the ability to challenge my belief systems. I didn't even know how to identify my belief system. I didn't even know what a belief system was. So maybe through our learnings and through our offerings there are some tools. If you don't know what's going on, but you're just struggling with something, having the ability to communicate it through journaling, through talking, that is a way to start to uncover these patterns or these beliefs or these ideas that you've formed or that have been formed for you through your early years. And then you can just be curious to go, oh, wow, that's interesting that this is what I feel and this is what I think. And then you start to create a system where you go, well, I want to change that. I want to challenge that. But I think the first step, which obviously you do naturally now, we all do naturally now by going, that's interesting that thing came up for me. Let me think about it. Let me maybe write on it or speak on it. And then let me change it if it's not serving me. That's the process. The tool that you need to have at the very beginning is, well, how do I even articulate what's going on? Maybe writing down feelings is a good way to do that, to identify what do I actually believe about this shit? What do I actually think as whoever you might be? Insert your name here. What do I actually think? What do I actually feel? Is it a good feeling? Is it a bad feeling? Is it a good belief, a bad belief? If it's not serving you, let's start to challenge it with curiosity and bravery.
It could be the most quoted thing on the podcast, but that thing that we all come back to from Rich Davini and have quoted on so many episodes, the quality of your life is directly proportionate to the quality of questions you ask yourself. And I think if you can sit down and identify some questions that encourage introspection and reflection on your own behalf, maybe 3 of those questions being, what's something I believe about myself? Where did that belief where did that belief's foundation come from? And is this actually true? Is there any grounds for this evidence?
That's the bar at the end.
Like,
is this true?
And
is
I think
rational?
to challenge that in yourself, in the things that you think particularly that are holding you back from living a really good life, I think, power to you if you can sit with that and work through it.
And it ain't easy. It ain't easy even posing the question, because you've got to be brave as shit to pose the question. Ask yourself, what do I believe or what do I feel? Because deep down you might know that by challenging this belief, I'm going to have to go to some deep places. I'm going to have to make some serious changes. And the comfort of my misery does not want me to change. But that's the battle. That's the game we're playing. So, yeah.
So what advice would you have for people listening if they're in a similar position to you where they feel like they can't move forward in aspects of their life because they're being held back by insecurities? What was the tipping point for you, or what made you make the jump about, I suppose, your insecurities around cystic fibrosis and then going into a long-term relationship? But the advice wouldn't have to be specific for a relationship. It could be a new endeavour in life, a goal or anything.
I think there was a point of realisation for me where I met Soph a week after I come back from 2 weeks solo in the US. And in those 2 weeks solo, I had a great time. I had a great trip. And I seen a lot of cool things and met some cool people and seen some familiar faces overseas, like some mates. And I had a really nice trip, but there were certainly plenty of points in which I didn't feel alone, but felt lonely. And I remember sitting down for dinner every night by myself and going, this trip would have really been nice to share with someone that I loved. And there was a realization that I was the only person suffering at the hands of that belief, that I wouldn't find someone. That everything else in my life, I was watching mates have incredible moments and meet partners, and I knew people who were getting engaged, and I was always the single guy at the dinner table at my family events who, never felt less than, or never felt like I shouldn't have been there because I was alone, but could see those moments on Christmas or, on Easter where, my sister and her partner are sitting there smiling together, you know, and I'm like, oh, I want to share that with someone, because we're such tribal beings as humans, where we want to be connected and we want to create those relationships and foster those relationships. And I knew I certainly wanted to be a dad, and if I had the chance, I knew I certainly wanted to be a husband. And it was sitting there in the US where I realized that I'm the only person responsible for the way that I feel and the way that I believe about this. And if it's going to change, it's going to have to be at the hands of me. And then when I come home and I seen that photo of Soph for the first time on Instagram with mutual friends, and I was like, that. I was like, that is the most beautiful smile I've ever seen, and I want to know who that is, and I didn't know who it was. And then we connected, and I asked her for coffee. All that stuff was easy because there was no commitment yet. But there is a certain stage when you've been on the first date, you've been on the second date, you're on the third date, and now you're starting to have those more serious conversations. And I'm a quick mover in every area of my life. I don't play on the surface level. I like to be honest and upfront. It's just the way that I am as a person. And I remember this feeling of when after like 2 weeks or so, I remember this, I remember all the dates. I'm a bit of a nerd like that, but I remember it was the 9th day that we've been seeing each other since our first date.
Nerd.
Fucking nerd. And we were sitting in the car. We'd just been for dinner with her housemate. And we were sitting there in the car having a conversation.
What day of the week was it? Just so I can paint a better picture.
It was a Tuesday night.
He knows.
A Tuesday night. We'd been to the Bavarian for schnitzels. I remember what she was wearing. I remember it all because this was so significant for me. And I remember sitting in the car with her, and in my head I was going, I'm so in love with this woman. And that sounds wild out loud because I'd never told someone outside of my family and my friends that I love them. I'd never told someone that I was in love with them in my life. And I was like, I can't tell her I'm in love with her because she's going to think he's fucking nuts. And
given the fact it's a Tuesday.
Yeah, given the fact it's a Tuesday and we've just had schnitzels. It's a schnitzel special night at the Bavarian. And we're sitting in the car because I lived with my family at the time. And so we're just sitting there chatting so we could have private time. And I remember looking at her and thinking, it was 6 weeks from Christmas. And we started talking about Christmas. She said, what are you doing for Christmas? And in my head, I'm going, God, I hope she asked me to go back to the country with her for Christmas. Like, I was like, is that so weird of me to expect after like 9 days? And I said, oh, not much really. Just, probably just dinner, lunch with family, whatever pops up. I just kind of go with everyone else's flow. And she's like, oh, I spoke to my mum and she said you can come home for Christmas if you like. And I near fucking jumped out of the sunroof of the car. I was that excited, but trying to contain it to look cool. And I was like, I'm so there. And I just remember at that point going...
Did you play it cool? Was it like... yeah, look like sure. I'll see if I can make it.
Check the schedule. I might be busy. Yeah. I don't know.
I played it relatively cool, but I remember at the time thinking... the stakes are now higher because I have to do what I've never done in my life before and actually commit to something that feels incredibly exciting. And I'm so lucky. I'm so privileged to say that being 26 at the time, she was the most perfect fit for me that had ever come into my life. And so I was like, if I don't take this opportunity with both hands... I've absolutely missed what could be the greatest thing to ever happen to me. Mm-hmm. And I will be the only one to blame for it. And so I just had to summon some serious courage to lean into it and be okay with the idea that none of this is certain, but I know I feel certain about it.
Yeah. There's so much gold there in that process to get you to a position where... you even had the ability to have that decision, like, am I going to commit with courage to something which I know is right? Or am I going to cower back into the fear and, like I said, the comfort of the misery and let this maybe negligible belief system continue to dictate my life? The fact that you were in America and you had the realization that this is pure accountability. I'm the only one who can change the narrative here. I'm the only one suffering at the hands of this shitty belief system that my health is making me unlovable. And that's got to change. And so you committed to that challenge, one within yourself, amazing. Then you opened yourself up to the opportunity to be blessed with meeting someone like Soph. If you didn't do that internal work in America, I believe you're never meeting Soph.
No.
You're not, or you might meet her and it might all look great, but you're going to fuck it up because you don't truly believe that you're ready or that you're able to be loved. Whatever it might be, your belief system is going to overrun whatever good opportunity might come your way. And you hear people speak about, oh, I'm so unlucky, or why is this always happening to me and whatnot. Look at what you believe about yourself. Deeply look at what you believe about yourself, because that's going to trump any good opportunity that you might be blessed with. You opened yourself up to good opportunity. You started to rewrite your belief system. And then you and Soph have been able to build a beautiful, flourishing relationship from there. But it started with you going like, hey, I'm alone, or I'm not alone, but I'm lonely. Why do I feel like that? All right, well, what's got to change? Yeah. And then you opened yourself up. I'd separated from my ex-partner and was going through my process of finding the foundations, rewriting the narrative for myself, challenging belief systems that had held me back or that had maybe been challenged through the course of a relationship. And Jesse, who's sitting over here, Jesse and I met each other at a very similar stage of our, I guess, healing process post-relationship. And it was so funny because I had made what now feels like a subconscious thought of, okay, I think I'm ready to open myself up to meeting someone now. Within 2-3 days, I was blessed with an organic coffee shop bump into this girl. And who's that? And similar to you, Brad, I was like, who's that? I gotta meet that girl. I gotta know who that is. And then we've gone on to continue building this really beautiful relationship for the last 8 months. But it started with opening myself. It's hard to explain, but I just, when you're ready, you're ready. But then you have to be brave enough to go, all right, because you've gone through a thing and it was painful, and it's easy to be closed off, and you feel safer if you're closed off, and maybe your health or you were using your cystic fibrosis as this security blanket of, yeah, it's miserable, but at least I'm a bit like more safe from getting outside pain. You can't live in that way. It's miserable until you go, hey, I'm going to be a little bit courageous here, and I'm going to open up to the possibility that things can change, that I might meet someone, that my life's going to look a certain way. Entertaining the idea subconsciously, and then just wait for the things to present themselves. And yeah, for me, I was fortunate enough to have the awareness to see that opportunity and link it to maybe 2 days earlier, waking up and going, hey, I feel really good in myself. I feel really good in my healing. And okay, I'm just going to open myself to whatever's coming my way. And then I met Jesse. And yeah, there's a certain personal internal accountability you need to take in order to get that opportunity and then hold on to it. But yeah, I think that was so golden for you to go through that period in the USA and recognize that, and then have Soph presented to you. So,
well, the last thing I want to say before we move on from me is, whilst I'd like to think that there was plenty of courage for me to step outside of that former belief and outside of that fear and into a relationship with Soph, credit where credit is due. She done an incredible job of allowing me to feel like really safe in that. It was the first time in my life that I'd felt really safe in that relationship space to go, hey, I'm going to overcome these fears and these challenges that I have, and I can be true in expressing the fears and concerns I have with the person that I'm sitting across from. So she done an incredible job of that. And I think even if you're someone who's sitting there right now thinking, well, certainly this isn't a fear I don't have in relationships. I think what you can do is you can be an incredible comfort for the people you're meeting to lean on you and create a safe environment for them to feel understood and heard when getting into relationships. So it takes two to tango,
Absolutely.
as they say.
No, absolutely.
So
Congratulations on your engagement.
Yeah,
Cheers.
congrats, man.
thanks, boys.
What an awesome journey that you've been on, and to be at the place you're in. So yeah, amazing, man.
Yeah, special.
So yeah, to have the belief, and as a little recap, to have the belief that your cystic fibrosis maybe didn't qualify you for the love that you wanted, the type of relationship or life that you wanted,
Yeah.
for you to challenge that, and to be now in a position where that belief's no longer true, and yeah, you're well on your way to creating that exact relationship and partnership that you wanted. So
For sure.
challenge that belief and look what happens.
Beauty. It's
Yeah.
enough from me. What do you boys think?
Phoons, do you want to go?
Yeah, well, I was telling,
I can go.
I think you were in the toilet when I told Joey, I was like, I got to tell you,
Just taking a piss, not a shit, ladies and gents.
got to tell you a story. I actually forgot to tell you this week, but it ties into this really well. And I hadn't even had this topic, hadn't even had this belief that I was going to change until this event happened to me last weekend.
Oh, wow.
So I'll tell you what the belief is, which kind of sounds like clickbait on YouTube, but then I'll see if you can agree with it by the time I get through the story. So the belief that I have changed was I've gone from in my early 20s to not being able to lose a street fight to now I can't even win a street fight.
Oh, okay. I think I know why.
Talk
Can
to me.
I?
Okay, okay.
Is it because you started jiu-jitsu?
No.
Jiu-jitsu humbles you real quick. You're like,
Yeah.
how did that 35 kilo 13-year-old girl just tap me out?
I think I know what you're like. Or I'm going to take a stab in the dark here. It's a metaphorical sense for the fact that as you've spoken about it, a quite a stubborn young man who was out there in the world almost trying to sabotage yourself because you were angry at the world and angry at the reality that you were in. You know, the violence and the fighting was just an expression of that anger. And now in a position where that violence and that anger doesn't serve you anymore, you know, it's just a loss if you're in that space.
I'll give you more points than Joey. That's closer. that's closer to the mark.
We're playing therapist here, just guessing.
I got a new roommate before I went overseas, and on Saturday night we went out for some drinks to just a bar. It was maybe 9 o'clock, and then we went to Mr. Crown at about maybe 11 or 12. Like, it wasn't super late. I didn't really want to go out, to be honest. Walked into the bathroom, and then there was maybe like 20 people in there. It was kind of busy. This dude walks in and just walks up to this guy who basically personifies, if you Google, or if you got Chat GPT to type in like, what's a 20-year-old virgin look like? It was this guy, and he walks up to him and just fucking king hits him.
No way.
Like, the guy wasn't even standing still. He was kind of walking away. He just walks up, hits him, kind of like knocks his glasses off, doesn't really hit him properly because he's moving. And everyone was like, what the fuck? And then I went to the bath, went to the toilet, and then as I was leaving, I was just standing there, and this guy walks past me and then turns at me and just turns and fucking cracks me. I had my hands by my side, hits me like above the temple, fucking rocked me. My legs went, touched the canvas, technical knockdown. And then
Shit.
there's like that many people.
How'd you not tell us this? God.
Do you want to paint a picture of what this guy looked like, or what his vibe was?
35, probably similar build to me, like not a very big guy. Just, what would I say he looks like? If I had to paint like an artist impression, just a normal guy.
So unassuming. It's not like,
well,
steer clear of that guy. He's looking at king at anyone.
Well, he hit someone 2 minutes before he hit me. Hit me, and then I was like kind of crouched down on my knee. Then I got up, and then everyone's involved, and I couldn't do anything. And then I was sitting there at the time, and I was like, well, actually, the bouncer walks in, and he's like, you got to go. And I was like, you're fucking kicking me out. I've done fucking nothing. And I was like, righto, I'll fucking go. And then a guy that was in the toilets come outside with me, and I was like, I've been drinking, I just got hit. Is my like recount of events what happened? And I was like, did this just happen? He's like, yeah, how the fuck are you still standing? I was like, I'm fine, I just got wobbled. And the bouncer that kicked me out left, and then I just walked straight back in. I was like, you're not fucking kicking me out for that. But then I was sitting there, and then, well, the irony of this is, it was almost, say, 5 or 6 years ago, I was in the exact same position, but on the other side of the fence, where I assaulted someone at Mr. Crown and sent them to ER. Because then after that happened, I was like, what do I do now? I was like, if I go after this guy, if I fucking 1-2 down the pipe, smack him, he wobbles, gets his teeth knocked out, hits his head on the concrete, then I've got to deal with the repercussions of that. Or if this guy actually is a professional boxer and that hit was fucking clean and he does it again, then I'm on my ass. And I was like, I can't win in this situation. If I knock him out, I don't want to go through the court systems again. And then if I get knocked out, I don't want to be in that position as well. I was like, there's nothing I can do in this position that I can win. Whereas my mindset when I was younger, when I said I couldn't lose a street fight when I was younger, going into a street fight when I was younger, if I won, great. It was like an ego boost that I hit someone. And then if I lost, I had such a level of I hated myself that much, so I didn't care if I lost.
No consequences.
So it was like when I was younger, I couldn't lose because either outcome felt like a win. And then now I'm in a position where I was like, either outcome feels like a loss. I can't win.
I think that's the growth, right? And, you know, in that moment now, last week, when you are sitting there contemplating, what's the next step for me? Do I go after this guy? Do I leave it? What did you feel when you realised that it was a lose-lose?
Well, I think jiu-jitsu probably does play a little role in this because well, that morning I'd done 12 rounds of sparring. And then when you go out at night, you're like, the fucking last thing I want to do is fight. I've fucking emptied the tank this morning.
Yeah.
But what was your question?
Like, what was the feeling?
how
did you feel? Were you angry? Were you?
When I was just like, I almost was like, had the thought, I was like, who actually does this? And I was like, hold up, I literally did this like 5 years ago. And like, I honestly feel sorry for the guy that's in that position, like what's going through his actual mind, because I know he's in more pain than whatever he caused to me. Like I was fine the next morning, had a little lump, that'll heal. Like whatever he's going through is going to take a lot longer to heal than what happened to me.
And that in itself is the development of empathy. And empathy is a level of emotion which you have like developed over the last probably year or two to go, man, I can see the humanness in him, and I can also see the fucking mirror reflection I can understand a little bit more. Doesn't mean that his actions were right. And it's a tricky one as men because we get put in this position where our egos and our masculinity is put on the stands to be like, how are we supposed to act as men in a situation like that?
Never take a backwards step.
And that's what every man has to cultivate for themselves. But for you to have the composure to, I guess, evaluate and navigate a situation to the point and go, all roads lead to hell here. Either for him or for me.
There's no outcome I can win here.
There's no good outcome there. And yeah, it's such a tricky one.
Because if that happened to me in my early 20s, the rest of my night I would have been on a mission, walk around Wollongong with some sort of weapon, trying to find this guy and even the score. And now I'm like, there's no win out of this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunate that happened to you, Phoons. So I just want to say that first and foremost. And I'm glad you're okay. And
yeah, that's why like I asked the guy outside that come with me from the bathroom. I got kicked out and he's like, come with me to make sure I was all right. And I was like, just to recall that this actually happened and I'm not drunk or concussed. He's like, yeah, I don't know how you're still standing. And I was like, sweet. And I just got my legs fucking went.
Yeah, well.
So do you think he was just out choosing violence?
Yeah, well, because 2 minutes 2 minutes before he hit me, he walked in the toilet and just king hit a 20-year-old kid. But the kid was walking when he hit him, so he didn't hit him clean. Whereas I was standing there with my hands down and just cracked me right above the temple. Then my legs went.
But is that like you were looking at him and then like, or was it and not that any of it gives any reason for you to get hit, but were you like, looking at him as he walked past you, so he's like, what, and hits you? Or even the 20-year-old kid, do you think they even knew each other? This guy was out just to hit anyone at any point?
I was just looking at him because I knew he'd just hit someone. I was like, right, don't hit me, walks past, and then just like out of nowhere, whack.
Yeah.
Like, didn't have enough time to react.
Yeah.
I think the recognition that you feel like there was no way that you could win that battle because the consequences either way, there's like for this time in your life now, the growth and the positive from this scenario was you recognize now that you have everything to lose in the process. You have a life that you've cultivated for yourself, that you're happy in, you're healthy, you've got great people around you, you've got great relationships, you've just been on a trip with your brother to Europe and, you know, with your dad, and like you've had all these special memories in these moments. The growth in you from being that young man who was angry at the world to this man now who has so much to lose because he's cultivated a great life for himself it's the positive, it's the bright side of a horrific moment.
Yeah, definitely. And if I even score this guy and knocked him out, I wouldn't get any ego boost from it at this point in my life. Whereas when I was younger, it was like a thrill that I couldn't stop chasing.
Yeah.
But then the thought that I had, I was like, who actually does this stuff? And then I had to check myself. I was like, only 5 years ago, I was the guy that did that. Well, I didn't hit someone for no reason, but definitely didn't need to do the act that I did. It was not a consensual fight, but I didn't hit someone out of the blue. It was a fight had been started.
Can I ask you a question? How does it make you feel about going out and being around bars and clubs? Because I feel like this is a conversation I've heard, not within our circle, but I've heard people speak about this publicly. I've heard people speak about this online, that there is so much more to lose now when you go out than there ever was. We're hearing about all these stabbings where there's this gang-related violence, and you hear your old boy talk about it or your pop talk about it. A bar fight isn't what it used to be, where two guys had a disagreement, you know, scrapped a couple hands, but like it never went further than once someone was knocked down, it was all right, get up, shake each other's hand, and not even to say that was right, but there was a level of honour in the way that men used to come to fisticuffs. There was no like king hit, there was no hit someone on the ground. There was a level of I respect you, you respect me, we have a disagreement, let's sort it out.
Shake hands after.
Yeah. But now there's weapons.
To be completely honest, if I was to go out this weekend, I wouldn't even consider that. It wouldn't be a thought in my mind. The only thing I'd be worried about is I'm at the age now where hangovers aren't a joke anymore, and that's probably at the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
More so than that.
Yeah,
that was just literally wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
Maybe my thoughts would change if something drastic happened from it, but I've been hit like that plenty of times before. It's just another day in the office, but it's nothing new.
Yeah, I think I have, to answer your question, Brad, I have a different view on, because even hearing you speak, Phoons, I'm like, all right, where's the accountability on your end? And this isn't victim blaming. This is what we've spoken about on the podcast many times. What role did you play in getting hit innocently by this random guy? Well, first and foremost, you were at the club. Does that mean it's right or wrong? Well, no, but you put yourself there. Secondly, you're intoxicated. Cool, okay. Still, should you have got hit? No. But what can I think about and change to reduce the chance of that experience happening or being in the best position to protect myself if I'm in that environment? And that's what's changed. Say again?
Headgear.
Yeah, I mean, how deep you want to go? You could like...
Mouth guard all times.
Yeah. And so I really I feel like I've outgrown, I'm sober, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. And a lot of that is because it doesn't put me in a position where I can thrive and live my best life in any aspect. Whether it's at a nightclub, whether it's wherever, I'm a better Joe when I'm not under the influence of anything. And then I'm also aware of the environments I'm putting myself in. That's to better myself in business, to better myself in relationship. And I've said it time and time again, nothing good happens after 11 o'clock at a nightclub. Like, if you, like, what do you...
line, isn't it? Nothing good happens at the witching hour.
Maybe, but and this is my opinion. There's just nothing out there for me but trouble. But trouble and trouble. And guess what? You're going to get put in a position where it's a lose-lose. I'd rather not. I'd rather spend my Saturday night at home playing a card game with my girlfriend. Like, that's what I would prefer at this stage of my life. And so, yeah, I'm just hearing and going, it reaffirms my belief system that there's no need for me to be in an environment of toxicity, which is Australian drinking culture at nightclubs. It's a toxic motherfucking environment, not just for girls, but now we know for guys as well. This is an environment that is like, who knows what's going to happen? It's unpredictable. It's fucking messy. It's dirty. it can be fun, but it's also the cons outweigh the pros for me, for sure.
I think it was just a full circle moment for me, given the fact that I'd assaulted someone in that venue only 5 or 6 years before, and then to be on the other side of it and just go, it's not worth it. Like, literally, what do I get out of it? I don't need to prove anything to anyone.
Yeah. That's also, I like that you can accept that, to be like, what am I going to do? Get fucking mad about it? I did the exact same thing. So there's a way for you to like internalize of going, all right, universe, like, I see what you did there.
No, but like,
I did that, and then my karma came and got me. Like, it is what it is.
From the outside looking in, I reckon a lot of people would look at a young, angry male like that and go, how could you, like, what is going through their head? And I'll even break down kind of how I felt at that age when I was doing those things. It was almost like I was so emotionally numb that the only thing that made me feel any type of way was either taking drugs or putting myself in a situation that something could go severely wrong where I get an adrenaline rush. So basically I felt like a robot virtually 24/7, and the only time I felt human or felt emotion was when I'd take drugs or put myself in a violent situation like that, whether it be win or lose. I didn't care. I just wanted to feel something.
Yeah, okay. Very interesting.
Well, why do you think you wanted to feel something? Was it to feel like you were alive? Like, do you feel like you were, because of how numb you felt when you weren't in those situations, you didn't feel like you were living?
I think when you feel terrible emotions constantly, like dream of the days where you're like, fuck, I just want to feel nothing. And then when you feel nothing for so long, you're like, I just want to feel something. And I don't even care if it's a negative emotion. Like, I don't care what it is. I just want to feel human. Like, you kind of feel like a robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, I think you said it there as well, Phoons. Like, fucking pray for that guy. Whatever misery he's going through, to feel like he needs to inflict that sort of pain on someone else, he's going through something far more painful. And once he realizes that, he's going to have to go through the journey of his own guilt, his own shame, his own remorse. And that's what you've had to go through to get to the point where you can now empathize with that guy. So
I remember being
it's not right, but
so emotionally
we see
numb.
you, man.
I had a long-term girlfriend that, like, she'd met my family and everything. Like, my parents, everyone told me this girl's amazing. I remember laying next to her in bed one night and I was like, I don't feel fucking anything other than like a sexual attraction. Like, I feel like emotionally numb. Like, it was almost like I had a belief that I wasn't worthy of love, and then I become so numb from that, and then you can only feel like that for so long before you start chasing, I suppose, cheap dopamine in other forms just to feel something. I think
It's a
anyone
vicious
that's
cycle.
going through that, probably my healing process to go from that to someone with, I'd say I've got peace of mind now where I didn't when I was younger, was the sooner you can realize all that stuff that you're doing is just a distraction from the pain that you feel inside. Like, every day felt like, it was almost like World War III was in my head every day. Like, that's kind of what it felt like waking up. But then to realize all the stuff that you're doing externally is only a distraction from the pain that's inside you, the sooner that you can confront that, it's not going to be comfortable, but that's the path ahead. Like, you can only go so far down that path of destruction before something bad happens. And I was lucky that I had a few wake-up calls where I could realize, I was like, okay, I'm the fucking problem here. Like, something's got to change.
So, yeah, so the belief system that's changed here is going, well, I'm not willing to be the one that inflicts pain on someone in a street fight. So old belief system, I can't lose because I'll fucking do anything. Like, this doesn't end until I get that ego boost or that fucking thrill. Now the belief system is, no, it's not going to happen because I'm not willing to.
So that was kind of soon after that where I assaulted someone at Mr. Crown. I remember that I went to a therapist. I've mentioned this on one of the other pods, and the first thing I said was, fix me. Like, I'm broken. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me.
I shouldn't be doing that.
And this will tip into like my second belief now, where probably for the last 6 years, I've almost had the belief where like, I'm broken, fix me. I almost had to hate the old version of myself to separate myself from it. And I think I've got to a point now where I don't need to look backwards and try to fix wounds or heal myself. I need to start looking forward again. And I can look forward with comfort, knowing that like the ghosts or demons of my past aren't going to sneak up behind me. Like it was almost, I had to hate my younger self to put enough separation in myself to make sure that I never went back there again.
Yeah. This is a random thought, but just what you said there sparked that in me, Phoons. The idea of like going back to fix all of the problems, and that being the route to, you know, your happiness or your peace of mind or whatever it is. I had this thought, and I used to also like this idea of purity and being like, all right, so you've gone through experiences and you've done stuff that makes you feel bad about yourself, and you need to go and repent. And maybe it's because I grew up in a Catholic Christian schooling system, whereas like you go and you say your confessions and then you're pure, and then you can go through the world as pure until you sin again, and then you got to clean the sins. But this idea that it's like you want to try to get as much of the sin and the bad shit, the brokenness, the problems off you, and then you're going to be good. But I've had this kind of rewrite that if you have a wound, or if you have some sort of thing that's broken per se, it's not about like fixing it. It's about like learning from it, obviously progressing, understanding it, but you're going to have that scar. It's going to show on you. You're going to have that wound. And so you don't want to be this guy that's a father or an elderly man that has no wounds, no scars, because he's like gone through and just like he's pure. No, you want to have the lessons of life etched onto your body and into your psyche to go, man, I can learn from that fucking thing that was broken in me, that may become broken again because we're not perfect, but I'm more familiar with it now. I understand it more. I've done my best not to just remove it, but I've done my best to befriend it, get an understanding of it, and be more familiar with that part of myself. And I think we hear this thing like, we are equal parts shadow and light. How do you become familiar and comfortable with each of them? Well, you've got to fucking touch them. You've got to have an experience that goes, wow, I know what it feels like to be a toxic 20-year-old male assaulting people in a club, because I've been there. And now you can understand that. And if that ever tries to present itself in your life, you've got a far better ability to navigate that healthily. And so it's not like fix that broken part of you so that you will never become that again. It's the belief that I've kind of changed is go, oh no, that's a part of us. This wound that I got, this heartbreak that I felt, this guilt that I have is something that I need to fucking grow through and understand that, yeah, I'm going to have the scars from it, and it's going to hurt at times, and I'm going to think about it, and it's going to make me feel a certain way. And then that's a part of this fucking life. As a 30-year-old man, I'm going to accumulate this kind of experience, and that's a part of it. I can't rid myself of all of the shame, like all of the shadow, all of the sin. It's like, no, that's a part of me. That's a part of the journey. And I'm like, you learn to live with it and grow through it, as opposed to remove it. Bit of a tangent.
The belief change for me is to no longer think that I'm broken and I have to fix myself, but just accept myself where I am. And now I can look forward and know that, yeah, the demons of my past aren't going to come swallow me. I don't have to constantly be playing defense. I can now look forward and play attack.
Dude, you say what I say in about 100, about 1,000 words less. You say exactly what I was trying to say.
But
yeah,
I think we've mentioned, I think we've talked about it. If it wasn't on the pod, we've definitely talked about it before, but like the motivation of dark fuel, I think the thinking of myself as broken was dark energy. And I don't think there's almost any other way that I've could have gone about that to get through those early stages. But now that mindset doesn't serve me anymore. I don't need to be motivated by dark fuel and look back and play defense. I can look forward into the future and play attack, knowing that, like, I don't know, my soul kind of does feel pure now. I don't have to worry about all the stuff that consumed me when I was younger.
I feel like pain was formerly your purpose, and now it's the opposite of that, which is love. In the sense that I think like love is life's greatest gift. To love someone or something or yourself is the thing that it's recognizing. The hard thing about love is it's such a beautiful feeling, but you have to recognize that if you love something or someone, you're at risk of losing it because life is uncontrollable.
Growing up, I had such a negative view of love, and I think the shield, and I am a lover boy, like straight up. And I think the only way I dealt with that as a kid was to become so angry to fill that void. I had to fill it with something, and probably is more of a masculine thing than a feminine, but just feeling that with anger like gave me purpose, or like it stopped the pain.
Well, you know, it's funny you say maybe more of a masculine thing. I don't even know if that's necessarily true, because I think that the greatest sense of masculinity is to love someone so much that you do anything you can to protect them.
So it's probably talking more from an anger sense. I think probably how guys and girls probably equally get angry, but definitely violence manifests more in males than females.
Certainly. And I think the interesting thing is, you know, to tie it back into that original belief you discussed, where you felt like there was nothing to lose, the fact that now at a point in your life where there's so much love in it, there's everything to lose. Like, life is so good. Your life is so full of love for, you know, the endeavors that you're on, the people that are in your life, the love you feel from the people in your life, for yourself. It's like there's so much to lose now. And I recognize that. Recently had someone on a podcast ask me a question, are you scared of death? I was like, I don't know if I'm scared of death or if I fear death, but fuck, I fear losing everything and everyone that I love. Like, I feel that fear, and that's part of it.
It's two sides of the same coin. It's the principle of duality. It's love on the spectrum, loss on the other end of the spectrum. You don't have the perspective to love deeply without the fear of losing. And how do you love harder? It's because you've experienced loss.
Well,
It's the only way. I say it's the only way, like I'm a fucking, like I know. This is what I believe and what I've heard and read and whatever. Without loss, there's no love. Without love, there's no loss. Without grief, there's no happiness. Without happiness, there's no grief. It gives you a perspective. How do you know the thing tastes good? Because you had something that tasted shit. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like a perspective, but it's all on a spectrum. It's all the same, if that makes sense. It's like you can't know one without the other. And if you do, that's where we explore. Be like, I don't actually know what grief feels like. By default, I don't actually know what love feels like. And then you experience grief, and then you get a new perspective on what it means to love. Yeah. So the depth of your grief equates to the heights of your love. And this is a principle, universal principle of duality, where they speak about that. So these experiences that we have can have meaning by going, this darkest hour means that I have unlocked the ability to have the highest of bliss. If you believe that, it gives you somewhere to go.
Summarize what you said in 2 words.
What goes up must come down.
Yin yang.
Yeah.
Well, I think I just touch on briefly kind of the
yin yang,
the process, I suppose, for me of changing that belief in terms of like, I knew when I was in my early 20s I didn't want to be that angry, aggressive male anymore, and it's easy to make that conscious decision on your mind, but then I feel as though your subconscious mind lags behind, and then your body even lags behind even further. Like, my body is basically stuck in fight or flight for like what felt like the first 20 years of my life. So to just go to have the thought in your head to go, I don't want to be that person anymore, like your body doesn't instantly react straight away. Like, the stage is going through changing your conscious mind, which can be done in a second, but then your subconscious beliefs, thoughts, and then obviously your body as well that follows that. I think the only way to do it is just keep turning up and just keep being, just keep doing it. I think you can't shortcut it. Just keep drilling that conscious thought into your head until everything eventually follows suit, but it's definitely not an overnight process.
Yeah, you can't be discouraged by the hurdles.
Nothing good in life comes quick or easy. And I think this is one of those things. If you want to change a belief in your mind, it's easy to change it on a conscious level, but to change it on a subconscious level and to have your body follow as well just takes time.
Yeah, man. Did you have any other beliefs that you wanted to touch on? That's the main one that you wanted to riff on for today?
I literally got punched in the head and then had a full circle moment.
And that was literally, not metaphorically.
Yeah.
Bit of both.
Take us through, I guess, a bit of your thought around this topic, Joey.
Yeah, so this one, it was... I don't think I've spoken about this on the podcast. I think the timing of it might not have been right, but I do think we've spoken about it off air. But the last probably year and a half or so, I've had one of the more profound realizations or belief system changes. And it's to do... Firstly, it came through a podcast I was listening to with Chris Will and relationship therapist Sadia Khan. And she was speaking about the concept of...
Is this the podcast that you sent Phoons or Phoons sent you? Because there's been so much debate about this.
This is... So Phoons sends something, knowing me, like, Joe, wow, this will resonate with you 100%. And then I might give it a like or something. And then 2 weeks later, I send the same thing into the group, going, boys, check out what I found. This is a banger. And Phoons is like, dude, I showed you that. Did you? No, anyway, that's semantics.
Clearly, Joe doesn't listen to any links that I send him.
Yeah. It
Now
just sits in my subconscious, and I'm like, wow. But yeah, so this is a realization I had, which was actually pretty profound for me. And so people who have listened to the podcast know my story. I grew up fatherless home, single mum, 2 sisters. My mum's one of 11, so big family. Of those 11 children, 2 of them are men. So a largely female family, and especially in my direct home, I was the only boy growing up. So the effects of, I guess, having a fatherless home or not having the man in the house had really, I felt like, skipped me. I felt like I was relatively unscathed by growing up without a dad, and it didn't, I knew that it manifested for some people. A lot of boys go through their thing without the dad in the home, whether it's rebellious streaks or they're out searching for this masculine figure, and they might find it in the wrong type of masculine figure, and they end up in gangs or violence or whatever. That wasn't my experience. I had a really beautiful upbringing, and I didn't ever feel this yearning for, man, I need a dad around, or I need a masculine figure around, which I'm not really sure why. Maybe because my mum was so fluid in her ability to be this beacon of support, security in her masculinity as a full-time worker, full-time provider and supporter for our family, but then also be that nurturing feminine element in the household too. Maybe she just nailed it, and I felt enough love from the masculine and feminine that I didn't yearn for that masculine figure. But I say this to say, I hadn't really known what the effects of a fatherless home for the boys were. I could see how it affected the girls and the girls in my family, and not that that's their story, so not to give anything personal, but I could see the effects of, and we even hear it all the time, daddy issues. And when we think daddy issues, you usually think of girls, and we know what the effects of girls without dads kind of looks like. I don't really need to go into it, but we know what that looks like. Until I was listening to this podcast that I found by myself on my own and without the help of any of my friends. And she spoke about this dynamic which is created in the boys. And so when the father isn't around, the boys often, especially as infants, will look to their mother as this goddess. It's the beacon of their existence, and without the father, especially if the mother, if they're in an environment where the mother will talk down on the father, like, oh, he's a piece of shit, or your dad's no good. I didn't have that. My mum never spoke ill of my father, and I give her so much respect for that. But in that environment, we create this dynamic where we will pedestal the women. I created this dynamic where I'll pedestal the women in my life because that's what I've seen to be the good in the world, is this woman who's nurtured me and brought me up without any help from a man. And it creates this dynamic that you view these women that you've pedestaled as victims of the harsh behavior of men, and things that need to be protected, that need to be supported, that need to be nurtured as I came into young adulthood. And it creates this dynamic where we're looking at these women as, things that need to be protected, nurtured, supported, saved. And that's where that's what it looked like for me unknowingly at the time. And it feels kind of noble and righteous that, you're a man, and as a man, you've got to protect and nurture and support. But save is where it starts to get a little bit, toxic in a way. And this dynamic of like, well, a broken woman is someone that you need to protect and save from the harshness of men out in the world. And that being the example of my father, being an example of that harshness that these women need to be protected by. And so I looked at the dynamic of past relationships I've been in with women and gone, wow, that actually played itself out in what can still be a really beautiful foundation for relating, which is protecting, supporting, and nurturing women who have experienced harshness of men in the world. But it can't be the fundamental dynamic in which you view relating, and especially in that which you view women, is that they need to be protected from men in the world. That's a belief that as I've started to explore more of my own masculinity, I have had to challenge myself in that it's not men are bad, women are good, men are strong, women are weaker than men. It's not that. That belief system is incorrect, which I now understand. And when I heard Sadia speak about this dynamic, I went, holy shit, I can see the pattern now, how I subconsciously believe that. It was never a written belief of me going, oh, this is what I believe about how men and women relate, and this is what I believe about the dynamic between men and women. But when I looked at it, I was like, wow, that actually is how it's played out for me. And something that I had done a lot of work around, I guess to pull back a little bit, how that kind of looks potentially for someone, I guess I'll just speak from my own experience, how that looked for me is that it sometimes in relationship created a lack of boundary, because ultimately I was the one who could handle it, who was probably more likely to be able to cop the harshness of the world than my female counterpart. Is that she needed to be protected, and she needed to be comfortable, and she needed to be supported. And that came at the sacrifice of myself oftentimes. And so that looked like me having little boundary to no boundary. If it meant that my partner was comfortable, then that was how it should be. And that was a kind of a tricky one, because it gets praised. What a good man. He'll do anything for you. He will, it gets praised.
It's coming from a good place.
It's coming from a good place. And this is what makes it tricky, because it looks noble. Maybe it ties into the people pleaser tendency, which we've spoken about before, and which you've identified in yourself as well as me, Brad. This idea of, let's please people to make sure that everyone's good. And even if we're uncomfortable, as long as they're good, then we're doing the right thing. Because, Brad's always there for anyone, and Joe's always there, and he'll show up if you need him, even if it's at our own detriment. And that's how it kind of played out. So this lack of boundary meant that I was contributing to my suffering, but as I was able to justify it, because my belief system was that these women need to be protected, nurtured, saved. And so outside of relationship, I was able, and then with the help of listening to this podcast, I was able to really start to sift through this belief and go, what do I actually believe about that dynamic, that masculine, feminine dynamic, the man and woman in relationship dynamic. And then maybe that prompted us speaking about, what does it mean to be a man? What is masculinity? What is toxic masculinity? What's femininity? And so that was probably all in a process of me understanding within myself what it means to relate as a man, if this dynamic and system isn't true, that women need to be saved and saved by men or protected from men. And that, for one, has allowed me to create a lot more comfort in myself, in my masculinity, but it has also allowed me to create, which I think is one of the most important things that I can now exercise in my current relationship, which is boundaries and understanding that things can be reinforced. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad man if you expressing things that create discomfort for your partner. If they mean something to you, they have value to be spoken on, and that's a boundary. A boundaryless relationship is a relationship of chaos, and it's not a healthy relationship, in my opinion. And so Jesse and I have created a really honest and open and accountable foundation to be able to speak on boundaries. And every time that a solid boundary comes up, one of us feels the type of way, but we can reinforce with each other, hey, this is coming from a place of love, and that I want this relationship to be better for both of us. And then the other person sees it, and then we go, yeah, you're right. Well, what came up there? Well, that boundary felt like this to me, which maybe spoke to this little bit of a wound for me here, and that wound came from this past experience. And then you create a deeper bond through a boundary and a better understanding of why that boundary is created, why it's important, et cetera, et cetera. So,
well, it's that thing that we've spoken on a few times in the pod, that unspoken and unexpressed beliefs create future resentments.
Exactly.
And it's like, that's the fear in relationship.
Unspoken intentions create future resentments.
Add it to the list.
Yeah.
But it is so true that it's like there is this fear or this lump in the throat that comes up when you have to confront something that doesn't feel right to you or crosses one of those boundaries, whether it be in your relationship, the workplace, your friendships. If you don't say the thing that you want to say and challenge it and you let it go, it will continue to happen. And then it gets to a point where people explode. And then the partner thinks, well, hold on, I didn't know that. How was I supposed to know that I was doing the wrong thing for the last year of our relationship? It's like, you didn't say anything. So I think it's like encouraging, creating, I spoke about it before, like creating those, the safe space in the relationship to have those conversations. It's a credit to the fact that you two have been able to do that. I'm proud of the fact that Soph and I have been able to do that because there are too many couples, and I don't want to cast judgment on people because everyone's relationships are different. But if you can't have an honest conversation with your partner, you need to sit down and like question whether you're in the right relationship. You don't trust each other to have that conversation.
Or at least ask yourself, why can't I?
Yeah.
Because maybe you're so afraid of creating discomfort or offending or upsetting your partner that you're sabotaging your ability to build a deeper connection and move forward through an issue because I'm too afraid to express honestly with my partner. Or maybe your partner, through their reactions to previous honesty, has created a foundation that you don't feel safe that they'll be able to hold your honesty, that they have the emotional capacity to hear you when you're talking about being in pain or talking about needing something to change or creating a boundary. Sometimes, I think oftentimes there's both things at play. I don't want to upset you, but now it's so important to me that I have to talk about it. And then when I talked about it, you broke down, and then it created a dynamic where I needed to protect you now from my truth, which is a weird dynamic in relationship. It's like I need to protect you from my own authentic truth or opinion or boundary or whatever.
It's almost like you're shooting yourself in the foot by speaking your own truth.
So what's the easiest thing to do? Just not talk about it. Just fucking put it in and just like keep it moving and get drunk with the boys. And that's really like what the masculine experience has been like. And also the feminine experience. It might be way easier for a lot of female partners to, I just can't bring it up with him because every time I do, he just gets angry and then he fucking just storms out. And then I just won't talk about it. I'll just be a good girlfriend or I'll be a good wife and I'll just keep the peace. And they got two people that are just like so afraid to be open and honest that they're miserable in each other's company because they're both holding on to stuff. And so that's a beautiful thing about me understanding that the dynamic that was at play and going, well, where's my accountability? Well, firstly, no one told me I didn't need to have any boundaries. I was enabling behavior because I didn't have the boundaries, because I was allowing this dynamic to play out and it wasn't healthy. And that means that now moving forward, I need to know how to navigate. And is it easy? No way. Because you have a conversation and your partner's upset, and the fucking people pleaser, broken bird syndrome dynamic that is like a part of my whole belief system is like, just fix and make it easier and make it more comfortable and just stop this. But sometimes you have to go, no, we know that doesn't work. We know how that played out. So yeah, it's been awesome. Similar to what you were talking about, Brad, it takes two to tango, because you can't do that and have a dynamic that I'm speaking on unless you have trust that the partner that you're doing it with, in my case, Jessie, that she has the strength to hold that conversation, that she also believes that it's not my job to fix her, that she has a belief that accountability is important in men and women. All of these things have created an environment that we can keep coming back to, hey, let's be open and honest, even when it's fucking painful. And then even when it's the most painful, we get the most growth from it and we get the most progress from it. But we commit to those, I guess, new belief systems about how men and women should relate, which is, this is how, like, you don't need to save me. I don't need anyone to save me. And you shouldn't feel like you need to save me. And I'm not broken. You don't need to fix me. And I shouldn't look at you as broken. You don't need fixing. And you're only capable of changing yourself, and I'm only capable of changing me. So it all kind of came intertwined of like, well, I can save you, but I can support you, and maybe I can change you for the better even. And then it was just a dynamic which got a little bit messy. But
do you think those boundaries that you've recently introduced into your life, do you think the only way that they could have come into your life is through the negative experiences and pain that you felt?
Absolutely. And that's why I have so much gratitude for the past relationship in its entirety, past relationships in their entirety, is because they have equipped me with the tools to be able to healthily relate now. Like the same as what I was saying before. You don't know how to love until you have hurt. You don't know how to relate properly until you have related improperly. And I believe that to be true. And it might take a few more relationships for some people than others. But we, all of us here in this table, on this lounge, commit to learning from our mistakes.
Call that learning the hard way?
It literally... I'd argue relationships are arguably one of the hardest things for human beings to do, is relating to the complex, vast depth of emotions and hierarchies and social dynamics that are at play between two or more human beings. That's fucking damn near impossible to nail.
Quickly, the same way, like for my past relationship, I got so much gratitude in the fact that these girls brought all my dark traits to the surface that I didn't even know existed.
Dude.
And I was like, she'd literally like put it on a platter and say, look, fucking, this is all your problems. And then it just started a fight because I'd storm out of the room.
You're like, I'm not angry. You got an angry issue. I'm not angry. Punch a drywall. It's like, yeah, you are angry, dude. So 100% Phoons. The past experiences
it's funny because that's not too far of a stretch from the truth.
It's such a weird thing. But without those experiences, we can't see it. We can't learn from it. We can't grow from it. That's why I'm always nervous when you hear like high school sweetheart married at 18. I'm like, whoa, I don't know how you're going to fucking do it, because you have to fuck something up. You got to fuck a couple of relationships up. You've got to fuck a couple of friendships up, whatever it might be, to get to maybe it's just me, to get to the point.
A thought in my head then, we're probably the first generation where it's not normal to get married at 20.
And how many of those marriages are like, I don't know, complete misery, where it's like, I have to be married to this guy. And it's like
my nan was basically in an arranged marriage and stuck with my pop, and she couldn't leave because she couldn't get a job. Like,
yeah, it's wild, because it could be that. It could also be the fact that communication was so less understood. It wasn't encouraged to communicate in the way that we're discussing on the pod now. And I heard Jay Shetty say it, that conflict resolution is the key to any successful long-term relationship, because you know, we can sit here now and talk about agreed boundaries, but then we have to recognize that, you know, if you're going to be in a relationship with someone, and this excites me because of the space that I'm in with Soph, in 20 years' time, when I'm on the border of 50 and we hopefully have a couple of really healthy children who are growing up and becoming their own people, I'm likely going to be a slightly different person too. Not in the sense that my values have changed, but in the sense that I've just had another 20 years, 30 years of life experience, that there's new things I'm interested in, there's new passions, there's new challenges, and I'm navigating all of that. And Soph's doing the same in her life, and then we're doing that in life together. That if we can't resolve conflict, doesn't matter how good the relationship is now, you're doomed, because you're not always going to see eye to eye on everything. And I love that Soph can disagree with me on things and call me out on things and tell me I'm being a cranky shit. And it's important, because otherwise you're living a lie.
That third breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's critical.
Three coffees today. Okay.
Yeah. Conflict resolution is, I think, the key to relationship, and not just romantic relationship, human relationship. Because unless we can understand our differences and then mutually consent to resolving them, and sometimes the resolution is you go that way, I'll go this way. If we can't commit to a resolution through the conflict, we're fucked. And that's what looks like wars. That's what looks like international conflicts. Like going, you want that, I want this, I'm not willing to resolve this, let's fucking go head to head. See who comes out on top. Who's willing to risk more?
That's how cars get keyed.
That's how cars get keyed and borders get crossed. And it's and it feels like, yeah, I mean, you go into the whole dark triad of greed and gluttony and like whatever. I think conflict resolution is probably the most important skill in relating to human beings. I don't know, mate, that sounded pretty exaggerated. The most important skill.
But it's definitely
critical.
It's
critical.
Get that tattooed.
Yeah. The least sexy quote ever. The least sexy quote ever. Conflict resolution is the most critical fucking, what did I say? Conflict resolution is the most important skill in relationship. Nice tat, bro. So just
we got the same one.
Should have just got loyalty, man.
I love
Sorry out.
I don't want to go political with this, but one thing that I've really enjoyed at the moment is hearing Robert Kennedy Jr.'s thoughts on the problem with the current US political space. And he spoke about how we have lost the ability to disagree on things whilst maintaining a unity with where we're trying to go as a collective. And I think that's like the beautiful thing in a relationship is if you can have the unity in the fact that you want the relationship to move forward into new, healthy, stronger spaces, but disagree on things along the way and resolve those things, and at times compromise because you realise you were wrong, or at times have space and patience for the other your significant other to recognise where you're coming from. So important.
So important. And I think like even our friendship shows that. You know, it's a cold Wednesday morning and we're going for a run, and Brad shows up in a black singlet, black shorts, all black shoes, and decides to wear white socks. I don't believe that's allowed. I don't believe you should ever wear white socks with black shoes. But Brad does, and that's okay. And we'll go and we'll run in peace. What do you reckon, chat? White socks and black shoes. No.
See, I don't necessarily agree with Joey's comfort to stand on the sand and watch Phoons and I swim in the middle of winter.
I'm meditating.
Talk about unity, a lack thereof. But no, it's important part of life. So is that the main belief change you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I think that'll be the main belief change. I'll touch on another one really quickly. I won't dive into it.
What was the belief change in summary?
The belief change in summary was one that women in general needed to be protected, nurtured, supported, saved from the harshness of men and the masculine in the world. It's not a shocker if you pedestal your mum as the goddess, and there's no father in the home. She's the beacon. She's the diamond. She needs to be protected from anything harmful. And that harm looked like men. And the way that played out in relationship was needing to protect and fix and save and change my female counterparts, which isn't right. The second little belief change was that the key to life is happiness. I don't know if I see it as happiness, and I spoke about this when I did a podcast with our friend Jack Miller. The key to life is happiness. I don't know if I believe happiness is the metric that we should be chasing as the key. Peace of mind, to me feels like a healthier way to try to navigate life as a whole, is navigating your way to peace. It feels like from that place, you can fluctuate into happiness, into sadness, into comfort, into discomfort, knowing that your equilibrium lies with peace. But if you're unhappy when you're peaceful, because your metric of success is I need to be happy. I need to be happy all the time. Why aren't I happy? I need to be more happy. Everything's great, but I'm not happy. That means something's wrong. I think it's because you're using happiness as your metric for success. If you can land on how do you feel when you rest your head on your pillow at night? How do you feel? Well, I'm at peace. I'm at peace with the life I'm living. I'm at peace with the experiences I've had. I'm at peace with the comfort of this bed that I'm in right now. What a beautiful place to be in. And that's something that I think needs to be stressed more, is that happiness can be far more fleeting as an emotion on a scale. It's how you feel, your peace of mind. That's what I've changed to being more important to me, generally, as what's the key to life.
Naval, someone, I can't remember his name.
Ravikant.
Yeah, talks about a peaceful mind, a house full of love, and a healthy body. Like those things can't be earned, can't be bought, they have to be earned. And thinking about if you build your life on that foundation, I think happiness is downstream of that. Like if you've got a peaceful mind, a house full of love, and a healthy body, happiness will be a byproduct of that.
Well, I think that where people get peace wrong, I think in the modern day, people hear the word peace and they confuse it for your ability to do nothing. Okay. You know, like, oh, I'm at peace because I can just sit here and just do nothing. You know, I don't have to have this, or I don't have to be chasing that. I think peace is rather a product of your, a product of self-mastery and continually trying to understand yourself better, continually leaning into those different feelings and emotions and understanding how to find equilibrium and balance in them. Because I just don't want people to confuse peace with this thing that is just a product of like not having dreams or aspirations, or not being able to, or just going, oh, well, I'll never really be happy, so I'll just be at peace with that. No, it's like, to be at peace is to be comfortable with who you are and where you are in your life, and understand that at any one moment you can push in one direction, you can step back out of it. You understand yourself. It's a product of self-mastery, or the desire to master, or the, maybe not even desire, but the effort to better understand and challenge yourself.
I agree with you. I think you use the word comfort there, like the comfort within yourself. I think peace lies closely to this idea of acceptance. So even what you said there, which was, well, I'll never be happy, so maybe I'll just delegate myself to being at peace. If you just accept that being at peace is the way to be, you're probably by design going to feel a little bit more happiness, a little bit more gratitude, a little bit. I feel like that will lean itself to making you feel like you're having a better existence. Your quality of life will be better if you can just accept what is. And even what you said, Phoons, around the quote, like if you can cultivate a healthy body, what if you can't cultivate a healthy body? What if you're born with cystic fibrosis? What if you're born without a limb? How do you get to? How do you become at peace with that? You need to accept that this is what I have, and as soon as you can accept it and be at peace with it, people go, "Oh, how did you get through that thing?" I'm at peace with it now. I think that place allows you to even touch any sort of positive emotions moving forward. Until you're at peace with it, you're probably just getting happy because you're getting high, Like, you know what I mean? Wow, my life's so shit. Why is it shit? Because there's so many things that you aren't at peace with. So how do you make your life better? Well, you manufacture that happiness through getting high or punching on or whatever it is. Like we see it all the time. But I think the most organic way to have a beautiful quality of life is be at peace with where you're at, with what you've experienced, with what is to be. And then you go into all of the other things like accepting, like understanding if you're guilty, you need to accept your guilt. If you're ashamed of things, you need to accept that shame. If you're unhappy with circumstances, you need to accept your unhappiness, and then you can move forward.
Yeah.
You got to accept it, be at peace with it though, or you're stuck. You can't move.
I can definitely resonate with that. 'Cause my second belief was I thought that I was broken, whereas I can comfortably accept myself for where I am now and everything that I've done, and I'm excited for where the future goes.
Yep.
I'm not pestered by the past anymore.
This is actually probably like a nice little segue off the back of, there's like a few things intersecting here. It's like all roads meet at Rome. This final moment, all of our second beliefs have a similarity. I haven't shared mine yet, but we spoke about it at coffee a couple of weeks, Joey, when you were away in Europe, Phoons. Talking about resilience, and like resilience is such a hot topic of the last couple of years. When we speak about mental health, we speak about the societal tough times that we've been through with things like COVID. And I think people try to frame resilience as like this one skill or attribute that I think has many moving parts to it. I seem to sort of come to this conclusion that, well, not conclusion, but this idea that makes sense to me right now, that resilience is a cocktail of multiple ingredients. One of those ingredients that was inspired by the conversation with you, Joey, where we're like, before you can actually be resilient enough to overcome a challenge or a permanent situation in your life, you have to first accept that it is what it is right now. And without the acceptance, you can't then exercise the perspective on it. You can't then lean on the purpose that you have to overcome it. And it makes me think about my second belief was very much linked to what you both said, in the sense that there's kind of what I've written here is that if I wasn't exceptional as a human doing, I wouldn't be valuable as a human being. And I say that outside of the context of my family and my closest friends. And to sort of dive into that for everyone's understanding a little deeper, there's this concept that I've heard Ben Crowe, the mindset coach for a lot of great athletes, talk about that over time, and I've actually seen this in a couple of examples of different people recently. I had the pleasure of chatting to former Australian rugby great and still great player of the game, James O'Connor, a couple months back, and I recognised this radical self-acceptance in James as a guy who, as he admitted throughout the course of the podcast and our conversation since, had these challenges in his life where he stepped outside of who he knows he truly is, and he challenged his own values, and he went through these moments of addiction and struggle, and he's ebbed and flowed in his form over the course of his career, and he's been highly criticised for that as an athlete. And across this whole episode, there was this tone of self-acceptance and this continued desire to understand himself. Then I recently listened to a mate of mine, Dill Buckley's podcast with an AFL player I'd actually never heard of before, Tom Barros. And I don't mean that as a jip at Tom. I'm just not an avid follower of the game of Australian rules. But I listened to this episode just out of curiosity. I seen a clip online where he spoke about the philosopher Alan Watts. And this one clip just kind of hit me. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a really interesting conversation. I want to tap in. And I've seen such similarities in Tom and James's mindsets around this idea of self-acceptance and compartmentalizing who you are as a human being and who you are as a human doing, and reflecting on the fact that for all of the ebbs and flows in form as a professional athlete, which is very much a part of your life as a human doing, it does not in any way jeopardize who you are as a human being to the people that love you and the people you love. And I think there was this part of me that probably is linked to some of the insecurity I felt as a younger man around appearance and the way that people saw me, in which there was always this chip on my shoulder that I wanted to be exceptional at something, that people outside of my circle of immediate influence would only value and accept me if I was exceptional at the things that I did. And that's been represented in a number of different career paths and dreams or goals in my life. When I was very early in my real estate career, it was this desire to be super wealthy and super successful so that people thought, oh, this Brad guy has his life together and he's valuable. And that led to me just feeling less. When I started to achieve things that were a part of that path, I was by no means financially wealthy or successful by any major standard. And I say that as in recognising that I'm part of the 1% who lives in the lucky country and has everything he needs. But all these ideas that come off the back of life on Instagram, cars, houses, flashy suits, all these material things that we think are going to give us success and will be a product of then us feeling valued by other people. Certainly none of that makes you feel even close to that if you don't have that connection with who you are as a human being. But I think I've realised that the older you get, and I've just written here, the older that you get and the more relationships you build that are true, you realise that all of your value is in the human being that you are, and the doing is just an extension of you. And remember that, I can't even read what I wrote there, but I remember this sinking feeling. An example of this, which I just shared with you boys before we jumped on record. I was probably 20, 21 at the time, and I'd been entered into this auctioneering competition, going up against a few guys that I knew and a few girls that I knew, and just felt primed to win this thing, to be exceptional in my field of work and in my profession. And on the night, had an incredible performance, super proud of my performance. And then one of my really close mates beat me for first spot, and I was so happy for him. And I didn't feel any envy or jealousy towards my mate. I was proud of him and excited for him that he won. But I remember feeling a deep sense of embarrassment in myself that I wasn't exceptional, that I wasn't even the best at this thing. So am I really valuable at all? And the next day I literally procrastinated for the first 6 hours of work and went out and done the thing that I hated, door knocking, to avoid going into the office and seeing people in case if they were embarrassed of me. This deep sense that I wasn't valuable because I wasn't exceptional at my work. And I've, over the course of the last couple of years, now 4.5 years of pursuing a dream, that is, I want to give value to people through the podcast and my speaking on stage and do something that I'm highly passionate about and driven to do. And building this relationship with the human doing, that is, there is absolutely no destination that I'm trying to reach. There is just me doing something I love, giving my best to it, and the outcome is completely irrelevant. Of course, I would love an outcome where I get to do this for a living and I'm rewarded in that way so that I can do more of the thing that I love. However, dreams for me now are becoming less about destinations and are acting more as a compass for me to grow and head in a direction that isn't incredibly rigid in my life. Because I feel that rigidity of it being an end destination can close you off from the other pathways of life that you become or lose awareness of because you're so set on where you're trying to go. But it also, and you mentioned Naval before, I never really resonated with it at the time, but I remember hearing Naval say to Rogan that desires are foolish. Because if you desire something, you'll never be content until you have it. You'll never have peace until you have that thing you desire. And I understand to a degree what he was trying to say there. Because where you are so rigid with your dreams and you're so rigid with this idea of being exceptional in what you do for work, you lose the sense of self-worth that you have. And so it's the balance of being motivated and ambitious while still being content with where you are, what you have, and who you are in the process.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's not... You don't want to discourage trying to be exceptional.
No, by no means.
But you need to understand that your value isn't based in your performance because oftentimes our metric for exceptional's already skewed.
Mm.
Like it's a subjective thing. I'm exceptional if I won a local Wollongong auctioneering comp. For someone else, that's not exceptional.
Sounds
at all.
fucking
They're like,
awful when you say it out loud.
Yeah, loser. I'm joking, but it's like, you know, it's a subjective view. It's a perspective that you've created in yourself. So, by all means, go be exceptional. Go try to win that local comp. Try to do whatever is exceptional to you, but also don't make it your identity.
Michael Jordan would be Michael Jordan without that desire to be the best in the world.
I love when we do athlete ones, because he
might be the exception to the rule, but
he might be an exception to the rule. I want to know, like, if he's at peace, because again we're going, well, Michael Jordan's a fucking top. He's the guy. He's achieved it all in basketball.
Yeah.
What's he like spiritually? What's he like when he rests his head? What's his relationships like? What's his family like? How does his family view him in the home? Like, maybe all of this has been traded off for an exceptional ability to play basketball. I don't know. Playing the devil's advocate, but
in hindsight, would he change anything though?
I don't know. That's him.
Yeah, I
He might
think it's
go-
so individual.
He might look at life and go, "That was it. That was what my life's purpose was, and it came at the cost of all of these other things."
Be the best at basketball at expense of peace of mind or living a normal life.
Yeah, it might be, and that might bring him peace in a roundabout way. It's all perspective, but the way that I'm looking at life, and maybe that's why I'm not a professional athlete, is because I'm not willing to.
We've spoken about this in a business sense, you and I, right?
Yeah,
You know, like, if like Alex Hormozy was sitting at the table with us over coffee, like, we'd respect everything that he's achieved and created, but he'd probably go, I can tell you guys right now why you're not as successful as I financially have been. And I think it's such an individual thing. Like,
because you're willing to sit on a couch for 2 hours and talk on a podcast and
About
have
your
it not
feelings.
monetized.
yeah.
It's like,
Well,
that's why you aren't rich, dude.
yeah, and I feel
I'd rather not be rich then.
I'm so different to MJ in that sense, or Hormozy, where like
Yeah. Brad, spitting image of Michael Jordan, but he just needed
Yeah.
to let us know that he is
Shock,
very different.
shock horror. Me and MJ quite different.
Wait, you're telling me you're not a basketball player?
It's funny because I think this could potentially attract hate online.
Hiding $1 billion from this whole time.
You're telling me you're not a black man?
There's absolutely. Hold on, what are you saying?
Wait, what?
I'm not.
Yeah.
This could attract hate online, or hate if anyone listens to this. I'm not by any means discrediting the incredible achievements of anyone. I think everybody's on their very individual journeys, but I would hate to be Michael Jordan. Like, I would absolutely, my fucking heart and my soul would feel like it's drowning because I'm just wired so differently. My life is so much more in balance, which maybe means I will lack the success or the ability to say that I was truly exceptional at anything when my time comes to an end. But I am very content and at peace with the idea that I may never reach the caliber of podcaster or a speaker I want to be, because I would far prefer to miss another 2-hour practice session of being an incredible speaker or podcaster for a dinner with the people that I love. Or like, I'm just so much more balanced in that sense. And I understand that has consequences, as are there consequences for someone like Michael Jordan, who doesn't exactly, from what I hear as an outsider, have the best relationship with his children. And for me, I come from a background and a family where that was really important. Have a really good relationship with your people. And yes, so it's always interesting, right? I think we've spoken about it, these motivational videos. I seen one of them pop up on my feed this morning, and there were 4 faces. You can probably guess who they were on the video: David Goggins, Michael Jordan, Alex Hormozy, and Joe Rogan.
Would not
Who
have
is
guessed.
speaking.
Would not have, out of 7 billion people on Earth, you've given us 4 faces and said you'll probably guess them.
I feel like that maybe my feed's different, but they're the 4 faces that I always get on a motivational video, or the 4 voices. And I look at Goggins and I'm like, respect the hell out of you, brother. But holy fuck, your life to me would be miserable. And I reckon his would look at me and go, that's miserable for me. So I respect, like, we can respect that. The same with Hormozy. I've got no interest in working 12 hours a day to like level up in business. Maybe if it was something I was really, really passionate about, but I don't think
non-negotiable.
For him,
It's not about passion.
it's different. It's different. And the same for these other guys, but it's like everyone's different. And I actually think that's where like this idea of life philosophy or self-help, so individualistic. Like, I don't think you can sit there and take advice from any one person. I think every time you sit in a crowd and you watch a speaker on stage, you're listening to what they say and you go, what's going to help me? What can I test that I've never tried before? If I test that and it feels good, maybe I'll lean into it more. If it doesn't resonate with me, well, then that's okay. I can throw away that piece and respect that it's worked for them. But, you know, we say like, oh, no, he's not right or he's wrong. No, he's just him or she's just her.
Yeah.
And that worked for them. What's going to work for me is a product of me testing things and figuring out the answers for myself.
Yeah.
That's why it's called self-help.
Yeah. It's not right. They're not right.
Mic drop moment.
For me right now.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, boys.
So, yeah.
Closing thoughts?
The Santa Claus episode, the debunking belief systems episode. I think
parental guidance advised for any of those kids out there who
thanks for
are 9 years old and just realizing that Santa may or may not be real. We apologize. He certainly is.
Yeah, no, this is thanks for bearing with us, everyone who's still here listening. Yeah, this is just us riffing and chatting, but a lot of good insights here, guys. I think it's good. You got to be able to challenge your own beliefs. You got to be able to retract statements and then create new opinions. And like I said at the top of the episode, hold strong opinions loosely.
You know, even the beliefs that we've come up now that we want to challenge, just even having this mindset moving forward to exactly what you said, summarised it, like constantly be able to challenging what you believe in. I think it's a powerful mindset.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll quote the great Ty Grieve, as he once said, "You can teach an old bull new beliefs."
Oh,
that's us.
That's us,
as they famously say.
Catch us later.
Thanks,
make sure you share it with your mates. Follow, subscribe the pod on any platform that you choose to consume it. We appreciate 2 hours of your time.
Thanks, guys.
Till the next time, boys.
Peace.
Yeah.